In 1968, two construction workers digging near a Montana cliff uncovered human bones scattered with ancient tools and red pigment. They didn't realize it, but those fragile pieces held a secret that would rewrite everything we knew about the first Americans. Welcome back to History Diary. Today, the DNA breakthrough that changed archaeology forever. Let's go back to that Montana hillside in 1968. The Anzick family had given permission for a gravel pit to be dug near Wilsaw, Montana. It was supposed to be simple, profitable work, but when the machinery scraped away the topsoil, something unexpected emerged from beneath layers of stone and sediment. Two construction workers found themselves staring at human remains. Not just a few scattered bones, but a deliberate burial. A child, no older than 2 years old, had been laid to rest here thousands of years ago, and they weren't alone. Scattered around the tiny skeleton were more than 100 stone and bone tools, flaked with precision, shaped with purpose. Each one was coated in a deep rust-colored pigment that stained everything it touched. Red ochre. When archaeologists arrived on scene, they realized something extraordinary had happened here. This wasn't a random pile of artifacts mixed by flood or erosion. This was intention. This was ceremony. Someone had taken time to wrap this child in hides, dust them with red pigment, a mineral used in rituals across prehistoric cultures worldwide, and place them carefully beneath the earth with a complete toolkit. The site became known as Anzick, named after the family who owned the land. And here's what made it truly remarkable. It was the only known burial of a Clovis individual ever discovered in the Americas. The Clovis culture. Those words might not mean much to you, but in archaeology, they meant everything. For nearly a century, the Clovis people dominated the origin story of the Americas. In the 1920s and 30s, archaeologists found distinctive spear points near Clovis, New Mexico. Fluted, symmetrical. Over 10,000 have been found scattered across the continent, from Atlantic to Pacific, dating to 13,000 to 12,600 years ago, the oldest widespread toolkit in North America. For decades, the theory seemed settled. The Clovis first model claimed these people were humanity's first foothold in the Americas, crossing from Siberia via the Bering Land Bridge around 15,000 years ago. But then, archaeologists found older sites. Monteverde in Chile dated to 14,500 years ago. Human footprints at White Sands, New Mexico, dated 21,000 to 23,000 years old. How could Clovis be first if people were already here? Then something else happened. Around 12,700 years ago, the Clovis simply disappeared. Their distinctive tools vanished from the archaeological record. Where did they go? The mystery deepened with no DNA to answer the questions. When the Anzick remains were first studied, researchers faced a confusing problem. Radiocarbon dating produced conflicting results. Some tests suggested the bones were 12,600 years old. Others indicated the tools were thousands of years older. How could a baby be buried with weapons from an era long before they were born? The archaeological community split. Some believed ancient floods had mixed soil layers. Others suspected two separate burials had merged through erosion. Then there was the red ochre problem. Both the bones and the tools were coated in the same deep red pigment, the same chemical signature. Red ochre doesn't form naturally. It was deliberately applied by human hands. So either this was mere coincidence or something profound. Skeptics weren't convinced. The site's discoverers had been amateur workers without detailed excavation records. Critics claimed there was no solid proof the bones and tools were truly connected. The Anzick site became both tantalizing evidence and frustration. And because the remains were so fragile, no one dared extract DNA. The technology wasn't ready. The bones sat in storage at Texas A&M University, preserved but silent, waiting. That moment finally came in the early 2000s. Ancient DNA technology had undergone a revolution. Researchers could now sequence genetic material from tiny fragments without destroying samples. But before proceeding, scientists faced an important decision. The remains were sacred to Native American communities. To move forward, researchers sought tribal consultation. Eventually, with consent and collaboration, the study proceeded. A team of geneticists, including Sarah Anzick, from the family who discovered the site, just 5 years old when those bones emerged, carefully prepared the sample under sterile conditions. They took a small piece of bone from the child's skull, For weeks, the work was painstaking and methodical. Then, after more than 12,000 years of silence, the ancient genetic code began to emerge. The results were unmistakable. The DNA was from the same period as the tools. The bones and artifacts belonged together. This was a true Clovis burial. For the first time, there was irrefutable proof. The child was not a later burial or a coincidence, but what the DNA revealed next would shake the entire foundation of American prehistory. When scientists analyzed the complete genetic sequence, all 3 billion letters of DNA code, they found something stunning. The child wasn't related to ancient Europeans. Theories like the Solutrean hypothesis, claiming Clovis ancestors came from southwestern Europe crossing the Atlantic, were definitively ruled out. The genetic profile showed 0 European ancestry. Instead, the DNA matched directly with ancestors of modern indigenous peoples across the Americas, especially Central and South America. More than that, statistical analysis revealed Anzick 1 was a direct ancestor to possibly 80% of today's Native Americans. One child, buried beneath red ochre on a Montana hillside 12,600 years ago, was the genetic ancestor to the vast majority of indigenous peoples in the Americas today. The Clovis people hadn't vanished. They had never disappeared. The genetic evidence also revealed something else. While most Central and South American groups traced back to Anzick 1, northern populations like the Cree and Ojibwa showed slightly different signatures. Their ancestors had diverged earlier. This suggested multiple waves of ancient migration. For many indigenous communities, this wasn't a shock. Oral traditions had always said their ancestors lived on this land since the beginning. What DNA offered was confirmation of stories passed down for millennia, stories often dismissed by Western archaeology. The implications were staggering. The Clovis first model, dominating North American archaeology for a century, had just collapsed. But here's what's fascinating. The Anzick DNA raised even bigger questions. If Anzick 1 was Clovis at 12,600 years old, then who was here before them? If people reached the Americas 21,000 to 23,000 years ago, what happened to them? The genome hinted at an answer. Genetic analysis showed divergence between Native American populations happened before the Clovis era. This meant people must have arrived far earlier than Clovis culture emerged. The genetic thread stretched back further than anyone realized. The bones had opened a door to a deeper past. Today, the Anzick site is more than an archaeological curiosity. It's a bridge between worlds, between ancient hands and modern descendants. From that red-streaked hillside, researchers pulled a genetic thread stretching across continents and millennia. It connected Ice Age hunters to modern indigenous nations. It proved America's origin story wasn't about conquest, it was about continuity. When the remains were finally repatriated, returned to Montana where the child had rested 12,000 years, it marked something profound. Science and respect united. But the discovery left lingering questions. What cultures came before Clovis? What spiritual traditions did the red ochre ritual represent? How many other stories are still buried, waiting to be told? The child beneath Montana's stones became a voice from the Ice Age, whispering across 12,000 years to remind us that history is never as settled as we think. Sometimes all it takes is one small skeleton to change everything. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please like this video and subscribe to History Diary for more discoveries that challenge everything we thought we knew about the past. What do you think about this discovery? Does it change how you think about America's earliest history? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.